Good morning, good evening, good afternoon. Hi, my name is Vivian Acquah, and I call myself the Inclusive Workplace Wellness Advocate. And today we are going to talk about leaders embracing tech in the workplace. But still, I do want to say something a little bit about me. For those who have noticed, or for those who are just joining, I received my LinkedIn Top Voice today. So today has been a very crazy, busy day. So for those of you who are sitting or sending me messages, thank you so much. I will definitely do my best to reply. But I also had this session planned, and I really am looking forward to talk with Tania and Robert about this topic. And I'm gonna bring them up to have this conversation. So let me bring them up. First of all, we have Robert Baker, and he is the founder of Potential Talent Consulting Limited, and he helps organizations improve performance by coaching their senior leaders in building inclusive cultures and realizing the potential of a fully diverse talent. Normally, Robert is in the UK, but as of today, or for a few months, he's in the US at the moment, and Tanya is in the Netherlands, and she is the founder of Change Angle Consulting. As a change manager, chief inspiration officer, she helps companies and individuals reach their next maturity level by guiding them through their change process. Welcome, Tanya and Robert. How are you?
Yeah, good, thank
Feeling
you.
great.
Yeah, the sun is shining in Florida here in the USA.
Oh,
So
stop
couldn't be
it.
happier.
Don't rub that in. Don't start with that,
You're
because
so lucky.
you know that we are sitting in the Netherlands, very dark. The temperature, I won't even mention the temperature. It's cold. It's cold.
Yeah.
So don't start this way, Robert. We don't have
W-
to start fighting or get on the wrong foot. I know Florida is amazing, but I don't want to talk about that.
We're going to warm everybody up with the conversation, Vivian, aren't we? We're going to warm everybody up. So,
Thank you. Let's start
Yes.
with the first question. Why do you believe that we need to humanize the workplace? And I'll start with you, Robert.
oh, wow. Okay. So I think the thing that came home to me when I looked at a recent Gallup survey was about how
Hmm.
low employee engagement is in Europe,
Yeah,
actually,
yeah,
and compared to the rest of the world. I mean, employee engagement, right, is low anyway. The average is 20% of employees are actually fully engaged, right? And in Europe, it's 14%, according to, I mean, that's horrible, right?
yeah,
So what we're seeing is employees not engaged, there's no trust, there's lack of empowerment, there's really sort of less efficient businesses. So I think basically what I'm saying is we need to humanize the workplace so that everybody feels recognized, valued, included, and that they belong. And I think that's especially relevant to people that, a diverse talent, basically, so that everyone can feel that they can take a part there. And I think what we need is we need boards and company executives and finance executives to stop this, sole focus on financial assets and
yeah,
start focusing
yeah,
on human assets. So I think
yeah.
that's why we need to redress this balance and humanize the workplace.
I believe in, and also what you said, I believe in combining both, right? It doesn't mean that when you are humanizing the workplace, that it means that you are devaluing your revenue or that your revenue are getting less, right? I see more companies also challenging that and combining their business values with, for instance, their DEI goals and seeing the benefits of that. So I would say think of it in a different way, because the way we did things aren't going to solve the challenges that we are facing tomorrow.
Yeah.
Tanya.
Yeah, and to actually for me that's always been such a funky question. Let's come on.
Hmm.
How human is actually the workplace? Honestly,
Yeah,
it's the most human place. If you take away the humans, then it's just desks and machines that nobody switches on, right? Yet we're talking about let's humanize it, and I think yeah, engagement scores are low. We can argue a lot about that. And to be honest, almost every engagement survey out there is designed in such a way that there's a lot of opportunities for um, interpretations, and you can find different reasons of why a score is high or low. But what I think is a big key to seeing the workplace as more human is indeed when it comes to priorities within the organizations. If you see strategies 2030, for example, now organizations talk about strategies 2030, we still see indeed profitability growth as number one or number two. And people are always somewhere at the last, either 4 or 5. What if we turn that around? Usually at least in my practice, what I've seen is you have top 3 to 5 priorities for 2030 or big pillars that companies want to make a change in or kind of mature further. People is always one of them, like it has to be there. But what if that's the starting point? I would like to be more involved in conversations of what is the workforce, what is the workplace in 2030, then how do we see or how do we ensure we have 15% organic growth? That, and when you put people on the point number 5, usually in the big board meetings, there's barely time to get there. And it's shuffled somewhere in between the training and learning and development and HR and...
But to build on that, Tania, I mean, what we've got to look at is how are companies treating people? So look at the tech companies now, letting people go. What's happened at Twitter, for example? You just get fired, right?
You are making it sound nice, letting people go. They are firing. They are laying them off like they are nothing, right?
Yeah, exactly. And as you know, in certain countries like the US, you get told to go, clear your desk and you go, you know, so it's pretty quick. It's pretty sudden. And what we see is companies are still prioritizing profit and business goals over how they deal with their people. Now, luckily, some tech companies are saying that they're going to do it better. So Microsoft, for example, Satya Nadella said, let's put a human face on how we're going to basically remove 10% of our employees worldwide. So, but what I'm saying is right now we're seeing real experiences of dehumanizing people in the workplace through these kind of very current issues and trends. And what'll be interesting to see is when business gets better again and they need to build back, are people going to say, well, actually, would I go and work for that company? Because look what happened when times were tough. They just got rid of me.
Yeah. Well,
no, I always
similar. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
I always refer to the situation of Stripe, right? A lot of people are talking about Twitter. A lot of people are talking about all the companies that are laying off people in a very bad way. But what people forget is the way that Stripe was being transparent about how they were laying off people, but also setting them up for success afterwards by providing a health care for at least 6 months after they have let go. But also Facebook followed the example of Stripe. And I would say, look up Stripe, Google CEO Stripe, transparency layoff, and you'll see a good example of how you should be laying off people in a human way. Tania.
No, absolutely. And what I wanted to say is that also we saw things like that also happening during COVID, right? A lot of organizations released one way or another people because, we don't have business, we don't need you anymore. And then the crisis of all of a sudden people want to travel, all of a sudden people want to do things, all of a sudden we want to go back to normal. And companies struggling to get these people back because, and to me, this is mind-blowing. It's like you envision, it's like the short-termism, right? It's like right now, we don't need this. So let's just dispose it. But how about tomorrow? How about a week from now? How about 10 years from now? And at the end is the human factor, the reputation is being carried by humans. So not thinking about that, not taking that into account, but just blindly looking at numbers, I think it's exactly what dehumanizes the workplace.
The boards should be holding their chief executives and their executive teams to account for how they deal with their people. And what's happening is the CEOs and the executives are getting too much power to act unilaterally and kind of get rid of people. The company's not thinking about what's our reputation going to be now. Now we've just trashed 10,000 people. So if I was thinking about that from a business point of view, I'd be thinking, wow, that's not a good thing to do. I think we've got to hold a number of different people to account for what's happening in the workplace. And I think the boards, the C-suite have got to be held accountable for how they're treating their people and they've got to think through more carefully how it relates to their brand in the marketplace, because they could really be hurting themselves as a result of the actions that they're taking.
Definitely. But also on a positive note, what I've seen on LinkedIn is that some managers, some co-workers, some former employees, alumni are stepping up for those who have been laid off. So some alumni are offering themselves as a mentor, as a coach, or as a career coach, or connecting them, giving them advice, or sharing jobs, or reacting on, commenting on certain posts, so that those who don't have a job have at least a network or a reach or to fall on. So I applaud you for doing that, because this is humanizing. Even though the workplace or the organization isn't doing those steps, I applaud you for taking those steps and showing a human way to letting go of people, but also to show that we all as human have an obligation to support one another. So from time to time, what I do, if I'm on LinkedIn and I see somebody who's let go and I see a comment, I will comment on that post, so to support them, but also for my network to see. You never know if that person might be getting a job through that.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And that's the power of the humans, right? The power of the community.
True.
And I think that also happens in a workplace. And let's also not forget that managers or board members are also people. And what I also have seen a lot is like their decisions are not easy. And it's very easy to criticize from the outside, not being present in conversations, because sometimes there are also decisions where we'd like to keep 500 by releasing 10 or 100.
But own up to that, because that's exactly in the letter of Stripe. The Stripe CEO apologizes for that again with somebody else. He apologizes for it, and is the most transparent that I have seen from the outside looking in. That is a transparency that shows you, okay, I know that it was challenging, but then again, you are showing that you are also dealing with the challenges, right? We now only see a one-sided story where we assume, and I know the assumption, especially within this work with DEI, is challenging. But then again, if we are only hearing one side of the story, what else is left for us to do?
Yeah, but it's not what you do so much as how you do it. So I can fully accept that there's a business reason to downsize the workforce, but it's how you do it that's really important. And so I think there's no excuse if you're not doing it in a way that's human, in a way that doesn't treat people as human beings, doesn't think about the impact on their families and all the rest of it. So, and I think particularly when we want to get more older workers back into the workplace, right? There's a lot of talk at the moment about getting older workers back into the workplace. And we still got this issue about leaders and executives seeing older workers as somehow being, past their best, not good with tech, etc. So we've got some real challenges.
Definitely.
I'm one of the silver surfers, right? Okay, sitting here with my iPad and my iPhone and my laptop. So we've got to think through, how do people that aren't in the workplace but companies need in the workplace, how do they sort of feel, well, actually, I could join this company. It would be warm to older workers. I can find a way to fit in, etc. So there's a lot of aspects to this brilliant question that you started with, Vivian. But I suspect we can talk the whole event on that.
You're already crossing the bridge or making a bridge to the next topic, because this conversation is an impromptu conversation about leadership embracing tech. And when it comes to that, and I'll begin with Tania. When it comes to that, what can leaders do to inspire team members to embrace tech, given the fact that we're dealing with different generations, different backgrounds, different challenges? What can leaders do?
Well, a lot is like, for example, role model. And something just to comment on is also the sense of belonging. I think is something that we call workplace sometimes as a cold environment we have to be in. I don't know, it's like sometimes has that disconnect between the human and the work. It's a workplace. But what if we call it community, like working community? having that sense of belonging, having that closeness together also opens different conversations like, hey, I don't feel comfortable with this new piece of technology. Can we do it together? How did you do it? Not having that, having at least a bit less of the resistance of the novelty, especially for talking to people that don't feel that comfortable with technology. And to Robert's point, I don't think that has anything to do with age, because in my career, I've met bless them 60-year-olds that are just jumping on the next tool just because they're so excited to have a new piece of technology and figure out how it works, while also millennials are like, oh, another tool, I don't want to deal with it. So I don't think it's so much related to age rather than that. I think engagement, right? Feeling that I would like to contribute and be part of something bigger than myself, that being the workplace environment.
Yeah.
And
I have a small guest who is a little bit annoyed, so it's his bedtime. Yeah.
Oh, okay. Well,
Hey, Bubs.
your
but
guest is probably very. Your
He's a
guest is
little
probably.
bit mad.
Yeah, this is
Sorry.
the new digital generation, Vivian. Right? Okay. Your son's growing up with everything around him that's totally tech, whereas obviously other generations have had to adopt it as we've gone along.
yeah, and what
Sorry,
leaders can do,
I
I
had to
think.
share some encouraging words to Orlando. He was having a little discussion with his dad, and now I have to mediate. But
Ah,
when it when it comes to the different generations, but also when it comes to because Tanya, the example that you shared was the older generation, looking forward to new tools. But then there is also a different generation that wants to do it the old way, right? And Robert, what do you have to say about that?
well, look, I mean, sometimes the old way's a good way, but I think we need to
Mm-hmm.
be open-minded to new ways of doing things. And it's interesting actually because I was reading articles about how Gen Z are actually stopping adopting tech. They're putting away their smartphones because they're kind of overloaded. And I think
Yeah,
this is a really interesting issue for all of us. I mean, I like you, right, Vivian? I spend the first half an hour to an hour of my day scrolling through LinkedIn, looking at all the responses and the point. And I'm thinking, my God, maybe
yeah,
I could be actually having a cup of coffee with my wife instead of doing that.
true, true.
So I think there's always this issue about how we're embracing tech and how we bring it into our life at home as well as our life at work. But going back to your question about leaders, okay, I think leaders can do more to educate themselves on the benefits of tech
Mm-hmm.
and how to use tech and how it can be exploited transparently. So that people know, like you go about, for example, workplace monitoring. So how many clicks are you doing on your computer? If you're bringing in technology to try and monitor that kind of stuff, then I think you need to be very transparent and fair about it. And then I think there's also leaders need to build tech into how work gets done, like the culture of the place. So, for example, most companies now have to be tech companies, but they don't have the culture that supports that because they've got clunky decision making or they've got poor tech, etc. So there's inconsistencies. And I think, so there's a variety of different ways in which I think leaders could really step up to show that tech's important in their organization and that it's part of how we do work now and we embrace it in the new environment where we work partly from home and partly from the office. Okay, because we've got to accept that's the new model now that people want. So how do we make that happen? And so for
Yeah,
me, a lot of this tech has got to be how we enable and empower humans to work and live the way they want to do that
yeah.
and put their work together inside that kind of model.
I'm gonna piggyback on what you shared right now because I know that um, a lot of us have been working from home, but still I meet people, I meet organizations where people don't have a budget for remote working, where they can set up their office so that it can be fully functional as an office or mimic, a similar thing as what they have in the office. And I'm just like, why aren't we supporting people and setting them up for success? Why is it not that we are assuming that everybody has all the tools in place? I'm tall. I'm 1 meter 86. I'm 6'1" for those in the US, and I need a a tall person chair, or otherwise, my back will hurt. And these are the little things that can make or break productivity in the workplace or at home. I'm also thinking about what can people, what can leaders do themselves. I understand that for as a leader, I'm looking at myself as a leader. I would be feeling challenging though to learn something new, or to teach people or my people to learn a new tool whilst I don't know it myself.
Yeah.
Because people look up to you, people look up to leaders, and if it feels a little bit, I wouldn't say shameful, but sometimes leader, wear a coat that I should know everything, right? And I just want to say that you can remove that coat, because you don't have to know it all. You do have to have those people within your team to support you, to be part of your team.
Yeah.
And I think here is, I think we're witnessing also a shift in leadership, right? Between the old regime, in a way that I was promoted to this role because I know it all.
Yeah.
And if I don't know it all, then almost that means I'm not fit for this job.
Yeah.
And you start seeing little by little this new stream of leadership that is more about, I need to be there to serve my people. I need to be there to make sure that my people are equipped to perform the best they can. And you see that I've had the pleasure to have had both of the types of the leadership. And they both can teach you something, but it comes with either empowerment or frustration. Because it's also that first type of leadership. And again, I wouldn't attach it to age. It also is very resistant to feedback. It's very resistant to the conversation of, hey, when you did this, it made me feel that. And that is where the disconnect happens, and the workplace becomes more dehumanized. While the other type of leadership, I think, is evolving. It's growing. But that, I think,
you're saying it a little bit cautious, as in it's going slow. You can be honest, Tania. You can be honest.
I am honest, and I'll tell you why I'm saying it like that, because the majority is still of the first type. And you know that in my culture, actually, we say that a spring bird doesn't make the spring. You need many of them to be like, oh yeah, the spring is coming. So it doesn't. It's like having five managers like this. Sometimes they might be lost in the rest of the behaviors and not necessarily promoted. They might be stuck because they'll be the different ones. But the more and more that leadership style evolves, I think it will just push away that old dogmas, but also will show a different behavior to that other type of leadership. The first one that I mentioned, the more, I would say, insecure one that believes I must know it all. But nowadays, you cannot know it all. It's so much that just accepting I'm not going to know it all, you already are taking ownership of your own leadership power, and being able to be more human with your experiences.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of biases around what leadership is about, and men and women have, all genders have those biases, because we think, leaders are meant to be decisive, authoritative, and all the rest of it. When actually, what we know is that more effective leaders, especially during the pandemic, were the ones that have more emotional intelligence, that know how to be vulnerable, for example. You can say, look, I don't know how to do this, or work with me. They come across then as much more authentic. They come across as being able to collaborate much better. And Daniel Goleman just calls this emotional intelligence and says, look, every leader needs to embrace emotional intelligence. And I think that's the leadership style we need for the future, because that's going to be in much more demand. And it's interesting because, in some of the workshops I run, I get people to look at two pictures of a man and a woman. And against the woman, there are things like, decisive, provider, etc. And then against the man, the things like, vulnerable, fragile, whatever. And people have real problems looking at that picture and the words and thinking of a man as being vulnerable or fragile. And some of the men have said to me, I don't like that word. Perhaps we could call it authentic. So we're all struggling with these labels. But ultimately, I think what we're going back to is what Tania says. We need people that can empathize with others. And if you're a leader, you need to be able to empathize and support people par excellence. So I think we do need this new kind of leadership. I think there are signs that it's coming through. I'm certainly running workshops, I'm sure you are, Tanya, on that kind of new kind of leadership. And, it's starting to get embraced more and more. But we still have, unfortunately, a lot of people who think that being a great leader is telling people what to do and firing 10,000 people at the stroke. So,
No, we don't need to. We don't need to mimic what Elon Musk is doing, and also on building upon what you shared right now, Robert, is we need to unlearn certain words. Right? Some words are associated with women, and some words are associated with men. Whilst both of these values of emotions can take place within a woman or all genders,
Yeah.
And looking at a strong woman means, a lot of people tell me like I'm a strong woman, and to me it makes me cringe, because in a way, when I feel vulnerable or when I feel like I'm, let's say, less energetic, it feels like I cannot be the other part of Vivian, right? It feels like that.
Yeah.
And also when people I stopped telling my son, yes, you're strong, but you can also cry and you can also be vulnerable. I don't want to tell him that he cannot cry, because I know how it can dehumanize him at a later age if I don't do that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think to build on that, it has a lot to do with definitions.
Yeah.
In my work,
Yeah.
I often, especially in workshops, as you, Robert, mentioned, when people start using words like, "Oh, I'm not vulnerable," or "I don't I don't like being called strong," for example, I just say, "Okay, let's pause. Give me a definition of vulnerability." If you have 10 people in the room, you're going to have 12 definitions.
Yeah.
We are not talking about the definitions. We leave the word come with some kind of, I don't know, aura with it, While if you sit and actually think about it, what does it mean to be vulnerable? What does it mean for me to be vulnerable? Then you realize it doesn't exclude that I'm not strong, or that I'm not authentic, or that I'm not strong-willed, or that I'm not determined. It just means that I might be a little bit insecure and determined to succeed. It means that I might be a little bit afraid, but still gonna do it. Or with the strong, I have the same feeling with when they say, "Oh, you're gonna figure it out." For me, this is the thing that I cringe. You're gonna figure it out. It's like, yeah, but sometimes I trip and I cry and I am angry and I hit the pillow. Yeah, I'm gonna figure it out. What's the other option? But at the end, I think it has a lot to do with the definitions, and isn't it that now a lot with we have a lot of attention towards leadership, and I think it's when it comes to leaders, especially using technology to come back to the question, I would love it if every leader out there that is listening or is going to listen to this to actually define it, make their own definition of leadership. What does leadership means to me, and what kind of leader I would like to be? What do I want my people to say about my leadership style?
Yeah. I would like to add another question. Yes, I love the leadership style, but we also need to, what can I do to empower my people to become self-leaders?
That would be the next level.
Yes.
I think we've got to recognize there's two things going on here. Companies will define what they believe the leadership style is that makes their organization successful. So I deal with a lot of organizations say, this is our leadership way. Okay, these are the characteristics you need to be a leader in this organization. Now, if they're different to the kind of characteristics that the individual leaders say, well, this is the kind of leader I want to be, or more importantly, this is the kind of leader my people tell me that they want in order to really be successful, then there can be a disconnect between what the company is saying the values are and of leadership and the skills and what the individual leaders accept and expect. And I think when technology comes into this, in terms of assessing leaders, so how do we use technology to assess leaders and their skills? How do we use technology to assess promotions and succession planning if we're using the same old algorithms that are based on the old past performances and what made leaders successful in the past? We are not going to be setting leaders up for success for the future, either for their companies or for them individually. So I think we've got to look at the role that tech plays there and the sort of algorithms that we build in to these assessment programs for leaders. And we've got to rethink that, I think, to reflect what kind of leadership we need to move towards, which is a much more humanized leadership, I think.
Yeah.
And if
I
I
love
may
that.
comment on that, I think this is, at least to my opinion, this is actually the engagement gap. You know, it's like people saying, this is the leadership I want to see. Employees, nobody's asking them that.
Yeah.
What kind of, how do you want to be led? How
Yeah.
do you want to be helped to do a great job? That's not in a engagement survey.
That's
There are
true.
no questions like that. And I
Even
think
in
when
the
we talk,
interview.
no, and if we talk about engagement scores of 15%, I think the truth behind this, the other 85 or whatever the difference would be, is the gap between how I would like to be led, what kind of environment I want to be working with, and the company culture that perceives leadership to be, has to be X.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But that conversation is still to be held, I think.
What is this?
Absolutely.
Is this your way to bring on a new topic?
Is it? If you'd like to dig deeper into this one, we can go into this one.
No, I want to
But
address a comment that was shared by Nushin. She shared, I asked several people why they wanted to start their own business, and they said it was because they felt insecure in their current jobs. However, starting businesses should not be the solution for job insecurity, as not everyone is suited for entrepreneurship. I agree and disagree. I agree, and I'm gonna tell it from my end. Being an entrepreneur, working, having my own business, it means that I can bring my weird self, which is the nerd, the robot, the neurodivergent person, but also my human, the other side of me, the caring, the social, doing this, and then doing presentations, doing workshops on DEI. I can bring my whole self, and I only had one job in the 15 years of a career that I had as an employee. I only had one workplace where I could be both. It was either or. You're the other version 1 or version 2. Could never be both.
I can recognize that myself. I would just
Mhm.
add to that, I had probably 2 managers I could be both with, not necessarily a company, but 2 environments within
Yeah.
within a bigger environment,
Yeah.
that I could feel that I'm rewarded for bringing all my
Yeah.
colors to the table.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
It's
for a
interesting.
majority of times, unfortunately, they would value the red more than the blue, and would like to see more of this or less of
Green.
that.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
But I think the question was about insecurity, right? Wasn't it? And
Mhm.
like there can be a number of different things that make people feel insecure, including, for example, is my company about to let me go? And
Yeah.
what I really want to start, I want to get ahead of that, and I want to
Yeah.
leave before they let me go. And part of that's because in Europe, and certainly in the UK, there's a deep shame at being let go. Being
Yeah.
made redundant. Okay, people worry about, how am I going to find the next thing? Is it going to be a stain on my record that I've been made redundant, let go, etc.? Here in the US, where I'm speaking from, there's none of that. And I was talking to a guy in Australia the other day who said same thing. And in Aussie, everyone talks about, yeah, I got my pay up, and I got let go, and now I'm on to my next thing. So I think we need a culture where people can feel, okay, well, if I got let go, it's not the end of the world. I've still got some amazing skills that I can share. Another organization will be lucky enough to have me. But I can recognize why people do feel that they want to get ahead of that and start their own firm, even if they don't feel entrepreneurial. And what I would say about that, though, is if it's something you're passionate about and something that you're
Exactly.
good at engaging with others
Exactly.
on, you will
Yeah.
be successful over time, even if
Yeah.
you are feeling a bit
Yeah.
lacking in confidence at the beginning. And so what we see is a lot of amazing women leaving organizations because they're not getting the right workplace environment. They go on to set up their own companies. Sometimes they're deeply insecure about whether they're going to
Are you
succeed.
talking about us?
And look at you, Vivian, and look at you, Tania. Look how brilliant and successful you are now, right? Okay. In other words, there's lots of models that show that we can leave the corporate environment and thrive and be happier. So, we should think carefully about that question.
What you said when it comes to sharing your layoffs, sharing that you have been fired, because that's what it is. I've seen that as well, where some European countries, they don't share. In the Netherlands, we don't
Yeah.
talk about it.
Mhm.
And in the US, I've seen a lot of people sharing it. But also, what I'm thinking also about is setting up people with grief counseling, because
Mhm.
losing a job, especially when you have worked there or you have created a really nice, cool family community relationship or bond, it feels like you're losing part of yourself, you're
Mhm.
losing part of your identity. And some people do grieve.
Mhm.
And I would say, add in grief therapy, group therapy, or something so that they can grieve upon losing part of their identity.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that comes with every change, right?
True.
So a part of change is you have two options, as I would usually say, and it's not my quote. I'm taking it from somebody else.
Mm-hmm.
You're faced either with feeling sad about the past, something that is gone,
Mm-hmm.
or feeling excited about the new that is to come. And from neuroscientific perspective, actually, the center in the brain that is to satisfy the sadness or the sad feeling, and the center, the fear and the excitement, is the same. Is the mindset, is like the angle that you'd like to see it, is a little bit like, is the glass half full or the glass half empty.
Mm-hmm.
But from change management perspective, there's always some kind of grief, and I think you always have to acknowledge it. It might go by faster or slower, but it's always there. And it might actually start before, like long before you have either you submit your notice or you get the notice that you need to leave, because often it's very difficult choice to make, who to stay and who to go, in case
Mm-hmm.
management is faced with with that dilemma. But you will see that, and again, generalizing here, often the people that are to be chosen to leave are also people that are struggling to with either a role or with a culture. And it wouldn't be always like a huge surprise that,
It's
it's
not
not like
always the
usually the
case,
high
though.
performers. It's not always the
It's
case.
not
That's what I'm
always the
saying.
case. Yeah. Yeah.
I'm just living it here.
Mm-hmm.
But it could be that sometimes it's been a process already that has started before
Mm-hmm.
you actually are faced with a decision or with the circumstances.
Yeah.
True.
I think
I
the
get
good
that.
news is there are a lot of people out there setting up their own businesses. There's whole
Yeah.
groups of other entrepreneurs you can join. So network with them, join these groups, start to learn what others are doing, how they're achieving success. And I think one of the key things that leaders need to be is to be optimistic about the future. And I think we need to be optimistic ourselves as well about
Mm-hmm.
we'll find a solution. Human ingenuity, human capabilities. I know we've got the robots. I know we've got AI. I know we've got Chat GPT. But humans have got an amazing ability to find new solutions, and I think
Yeah.
therefore we can find new solutions for our lives, our workplaces, and I think we just remember to have that optimism, and we flex that optimism mindset muscle, and I think that can really help us get through here.
I want to bring it back to the topic tech and leadership as well, because there is also another question that I would like to ask, and of each of you, one tip, one top. So one best practice or one company where you see that they are solving this challenge, and the tip that you have for them. So what is the bad and the ugly that you would like to share regarding leadership not embracing tech in the workplace? Oh,
If I
Robert, sorry.
stagnates,
Oh,
okay,
yeah.
that's fine.
Oh, I was pausing because I wanted to let Tanya go first, but if you would like me to start, I mean,
Mm-hmm.
mine is relatively simple, I think, which is that we still don't have enough leaders really embracing flexible working and remote working using tech.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that will be the number one thing that will create so much joy and so much productivity and so much enhancement in capability. So I think the bad and the ugly is around still thinking you've got to be at the desk to be producing work and being productive. And I still see that. I'm amazed at how many leaders are still coming out and saying that. Fortunately, in Davos, a woman business leader said, actually, you can flex in our view, and so it's great to see women taking the lead on that. So I think that would be my one bad and ugly thing. But to look at the positive side of things, I think if they can embrace that, they can really empower their businesses, because we go back to the fact that younger people and high performing talent want to work differently than what businesses are telling them they've got to work. So that for me has got to be the nub of it.
True. I love that. Thank you. And Tania?
Yeah, I would use a very practical example that that has been a huge pain for me. We have a lot of technology, great technology out there that you can use for all sorts of online collaborations, analysis. And I love it when a leader is like, here's the link to a great BI or something. And I get a response, thanks, but can you please download a PDF or a PowerPoint, or just give me an extraction of that in Excel? And that means another 2 hours of work, either for me or for somebody from my team, when it's on a click of a freaking button. And back to what Robert mentioned is like,
are you sharing some frustrations here, Tania?
I'm just like, really. And back to what Robert mentioned is about educating and having in mind how expensive some technology is for companies. Yeah. And seeing the leaders not taking the training or taking the 1 hour, not even in between meetings, it can be even spread across a whole week, but taking the time to actually explore it and click it, because some tools, how the kids learn it, they just click around and discover what the tool does. It doesn't come with a manual of 500 pages. It's just a matter of experiencing and allowing yourself to have that experience, making the time for it. And when it comes for a tip, I would like to share a story and then give my tip. During the pandemic, one of the leaders that warmed my heart a lot, use technology to actually analyze a little bit like the data, the behavior of his people working online, and pinpoint actually the ones that were working late, the ones that he saw were single according to an HR database, and try to spend more time with them, having walk-in talks, checking on them, sending flowers. And I got these stories from actually people from his team. That to me was a brilliant way to use technology in a very simple way to be more connected, to make people feel more human and seen in the workplace. It's not just collecting data and creating beautiful dashboard and then making it in Excel and seeing it one time. And the tip is like, be creative with technology, see what it can do for you, experience it, and use it for all sorts of ways that can actually help the people around you feel more human, seen, empowered, recognized.
Yeah, I love that. And also what the bad that I saw was companies, leaders no longer investing in mental well-being tools, canceling the subscriptions, not providing access, whilst especially in this time, having access to a meditation tool or having access to a tool that de-stresses people is very valuable. I know that before the lockdown, people were laughing when I was talking about meditation, or meditation was looked upon differently. But now a lot more people have gotten accustomed to yoga, to meditating, but also just walking outside, doing walk and talk, like Robert said earlier right now, which is normal. And if you want to use tech for good, invest in your people by investing in those tools that add a positive value to their mental well-being. That's the tip that I have.
And obviously we know things like Headspace are a great way of getting access into meditation. Interestingly, Daniel Goleman seems to be accepted by many business leaders as someone who's got something to say. He talked about emotional intelligence. He's just come out with something about meditation, Vivian, you'll be glad to hear. Daniel's now saying that we should be meditating to enable
Yeah.
us to recharge ourselves and to be on top of things. So he meditates every day at the start of the day. I do too, and I find it an enormous way to kind of clear my head for the day ahead. So let's take meditation out of the soft skills, hippy dippy kind of category. It's actually now an essential business tool. Honestly, I find with all the things that are tasking me as a leader, for example, and a consultant, actually having an ability to clear my head is absolutely critical. So if I can spend 30 minutes meditating and not 30 minutes checking my LinkedIn feed, I'm actually going to start the day in a better shape.
Yes, love that. And something that I will do right after this session is heat up my sauna to debrief, because I've been, a lot of, let's say that today was a very triggering day. A lot of things happen, a lot of positive things happen, but too much of positivity can also do something with you, right? So I am coming to my last question. I know that we just started with the year 2023, but I'm still going to ask this question anyway. What is your wish to humanize the workplace? And also when it comes to leadership and tech, what do you want to leave? What needs to be activated by 2025? Tanya.
I think I'll come back to the empathy.
Yeah,
Almost
love that.
Create that in affirmation almost. I can empathize in any way possible, being technology, being the phone, being face to face. Just find your way. Find your way to empathize others, and that would be enough. You don't necessarily need to give a hug to someone to lift their spirits. A smile via the camera also works, as long as it's authentic and it's actually with the energy of with the empathetic energy.
Yeah, and when you go for a hug, please ask consent or ask something so that both parties are okay with that.
I always do, but I'm a pathological hugger. It's just I can't help it.
And Robert, what about you?
I think what we're facing is a future where humans need to work alongside robots, AI, tech, etc. And we don't have anything to fear, I don't think, if we embrace it in the right way, and providing we're aware of how the power structures work in terms of generating progress on these things. I would certainly like to see leaders, to build on what Tania's saying, actually embrace emotional intelligence. I think this whole emotional intelligence piece is going to be critical, but with a mind where they're open and encourage people in their teams to be open about how we collaborate alongside the tech, because it's man and woman and all genders plus tech that will help us solve the problems of the world, not one or the other. So that will be my wish, that by 2025 we're already on that path of learning how better to not be scared of what tech can bring, but how we can use it to empower ourselves to achieve that better future that we need.
I love this conversation. I could go on for hours, but I do need to highlight one comment, which is definitely an eyebrow raiser. So, very interesting how companies sell diversity in personality and leadership during the hiring process, only to join and realize they recommend and reward a style of leadership. And that's a very interesting question or comment that IO is sharing, which I hope that will. Let's say that will challenge your way of thinking, right? Because if you're advocating it for within the hiring process, and then once the person comes in after 2 months, they don't feel it, let's say that the job honeymoon will end sooner than later.
Yeah, absolutely. And we need more transparency, because what we need is, because things like Glassdoor are kind of helpful, because they reflect on what current employees and past employees are saying about what it's like to actually work in a company. If people that are about to join the company know that there are issues with the disconnect between what they say and what they do, that's where you can actually avoid that before you even join. So it's a shame that that's happening. That's a great pick up there, and that's got to be worked on, because that's going to cause problems for those companies in the long term.
Thank you. I didn't bring the awesome card, Tanya knows it, but both of the conversation are awesome. I forgot about it, but just to let you know that I appreciate everything that you both shared, Tania and Robert, and thank you for being the guest speakers of this week. And also for the people that are watching, next week Monday will be a special session which I'm having with somebody else, with Robin Daniels. This will be a special occasion, so please watch my profile to see whatever conversation that I have, and also please connect with Robert and Tania to learn more about what they do, but also connect with them, comment on them, support them as well, because I'm not only bringing them on just for this conversation. It's all about amplifying each other's network and see what we can do for each other. So thank you all, and have a nice evening, morning, day, or night. Thank you.
Thank you so
Bye.
much,
Thank you,
Vivian.
Vivian.
Thank you, Tania.
And congratulations on the top voice again.
Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah, what a privilege. What a privilege to be on
Thank
the
you.
same show as you.
Yes. Oh,
Right.
stop it.
Thank you, Robert, as well.